and time again, we talk about the Dallas Cowboys defense. They're the second best in the league,
Roll with it.
allowing 17 points per game. Are the Colts even going to score a touchdown this weekend, Tank?
Damn.
That's cold.
I mean, I guess it could be. Like, if the Dallas Cowboys defense is clicking on all cylinders, like, it could be a Mortal Kombat type of affair, like, finish them. So, I mean, I see it. But, I mean, I think we do need to speak to that time management a little bit from Jeff Saturday, because I know he's a new coach. But, I mean, I haven't been coaching. I played the game. And when you – like, that's the thing. Like, you should get a spidey sense in some of these situations where it's like, all right, my quarterback has the ball. He just scrambled. It's around this much time on the clock. Like, you just have a feeling of, like, when you need to call a timeout. And I think everyone watching the game, probably some of the players that were on the sideline, they were thinking, like, hey, this is around the time you should call a timeout. So I really don't want to make that excuse for him. And there should be someone in the booth yelling down his ear if he really didn't get that spidey sense like all of us got. That being said, man, this is a tough matchup for the Colts, because the Achilles heel for the Indianapolis Colts has been Matt Ryan turning the ball over. And Matt Ryan can't really deal with pressure. You talked about quarterbacks who are really bad against pressure. You talk about Jimmy Garoppolo, that dude. Well, hey, Matt Ryan is that dude too. Yeah, under pressure. And so when you think about Micah Parsons, Tank Lawrence, and what all these guys can do for the Dallas Cowboys front, I think that they can really overwhelm this Indianapolis Colts offense. The only thing that can save the Colts is if they can get some semblance of a running game started with Jonathan Taylor. And I remember looking at this line, like this spread early on, it was like -9.5, and now it's at like -11. And I think people see the same thing that we did. Like, they got a little jolt of momentum from Jeff Saturday in that first game against the Las Vegas Raiders. Granted, they came back and they had a chance to win that game against the Pittsburgh Steelers late on Monday Night Football. But now this may end up being an instance where they just run into a brick wall and they just get smacked around. Now, given so much parity in the league and how some of these teams fluctuate on a weekly basis, I don't know if I'd be willing to bet this -11 right now for the Cowboys or any damn team for that matter. But I see where Vegas is coming from, because at this point, the Indianapolis Colts look broken, and it seems like they're well on their way to either getting a Bryce Young or someone like that to come in and fix their quarterback issues. And then hopefully my man Jim Irsay can return to the greatness, since that's what he does. He drafts quarterbacks number 1 overall, or close to number 1 overall, and then he turns the ship around, and then they start winning games again.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about the Colts, and you talk about Matt Ryan. The dude's thrown 11 picks, second worst in the league. He's been sacked 32 times, which is 5th worst in the league. And guess what the Cowboys are really good at? Putting the quarterback under pressure. They lead the NFL with 45 sacks. I feel like Matt Ryan's going to be running for his freaking life in that game. To be honest with you, and I'll tell you in a second, Jared, too, why. I almost feel comfortable laying the 10.5 with the Dallas Cowboys in this game. Would you feel comfortable, or is it too many points?
It's a good question. First, can I just state for the record that we get the Colts in prime time 2 consecutive weeks?
Yes, what everyone wants and what everyone needs. Let's go.
And the part about this one that bothers me is it was preventable, because the NFL could have flexed out of this game if they chose to do so. And I don't know why they didn't. Dolphins, Niners, Bengals, Chiefs.
Yeah.
What? Why?
Well, hey, you have the answer right in front of you. Jerry Jones. Jerry's not going to let that happen.
No, he ain't going to let that happen, right? And I think a lot of people speculated, and you know what happens when you assume, you make an ass out of you and me. A lot of people assumed that Odell Beckham was going to be making his debut for the Cowboys in this game, and that's the conspiracy theory of why this game stayed in primetime. Well, again, that didn't happen. I don't have a lot of very analytical thoughts on this game. I can see why people were up in arms about the Saturday clock management thing. He tried to make his case for why, the defense was a little off balance there and he wanted to keep them on their toes, and that's why he didn't call timeout. I'm not an expert in clock management. I'm not going to grind his gears for that, because I think there's so many other problems with that game. They didn't lose that game because of that clock management play. They lost that game because Matt Ryan couldn't find his way into the end zone, despite having multiple opportunities throughout the game to do so, and because their offensive line is in shambles, and because Jonathan Taylor didn't run it that well. Like, there was a lot of reasons why, and they let Kenny Pickett run up and down the field for most of the game. There was a lot of reasons why the Colts lost that game. I think when you look at this Cowboys team, there's a lot to like. And there's a lot of positives, and I think they're a team that I wouldn't want to face in the playoffs. If I'm thinking about a team that can upset the Eagles in that divisional round in the, after their bye, Dallas is probably the first team that comes to mind. And I just don't really like them in this spot, though, because I don't really like laying this many points, and unless there's a really good reason why. And I can't really think of a really good reason why, because, Indy can run it a little bit, and that's where Dallas's weak spot is on their defense. And, I don't really have a whole lot of analytical thoughts on this game other than why do we have to sit to the Colts?
And the Colts defense could bow up a little bit too.
I mean,
the Colts have good players. Like, that's the thing, Tank. There's good players on that team, especially defensively. They've got arguably the best cover corner in the league right now besides Sauce Gardner and Stephon Gilmore. And they've got a couple of good dudes up front that can get after it. And they've got Michael Pittman and Jonathan Taylor as the league, the reigning rushing champ. I mean, there's good players on this team. It's not like they're devoid of talent. They just haven't put it together yet. And I don't think they're going to put it together this week, but I don't really feel very strongly about either side here.